I want to thank you all for coming for this meeting at Adult Ed. We have two lovely speakers here today. First, I want to introduce Christine Lett. She's a new member of our church, and she's going to talk a little bit about her spiritual journey, how she ended up at Covenant United Methodist. And she also has some interest in Buddhism, and she has found that some of the teachings that she's learned up at the Abbey has coincided and melded very well with her Christian faith. So she will speak to us first, and then I'll let her introduce our other speaker. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Christine.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm honored to be here. As he was said, I'm a new member to the church, and I came over from the Catholic Church. I'm actually still a practicing Catholic. I became a Catholic at age 43, which was 33 years ago, and I became a Catholic at that late age because I was married to my wife at the time, and she was a Catholic, and I admired her character and I admired her faith, and she was such an inspiration to me that I just wanted to join the church with her so we could be together in church. So I was motivated by her character and her kindness. However, over the last several years, I've drifted away from the church because the church does not welcome people on the fringes of society. Because Jesus reached out to people that were social outcasts, people that were outside the mainstream. And right now, that's me. I'm a social outcast, and I'm outside the mainstream because I'm a transgender woman. I was born male, I am now female, and therefore I am not welcome in the Catholic Church. I had my surgery 3 years ago, and I was told that I am morally unfit to be in the Catholic Church. And I said to the person that told me that, I said, does that message come straight from Jesus? Because I knew it didn't. So I still am practicing Catholic because I believe in the teachings of Jesus. There's a chair here. I believe in the teachings of Jesus, but the institutional church and I have parted ways. I was drawn to Buddhism recently because I kept running across articles about it in various publications, and a friend of mine identified herself as being Buddhist, and I said, well, I am interested in finding out more about Buddhism. And so she invited me to the group that she participates in. It was about 8 people, and they met at a woman's house, and they called her Lama, and she was an elderly woman from Germany. And their practice consisted of reciting Tibetan prayers in Tibetan, and I did that for a while, but it kind of left me thinking, how is that improving my life? How is that changing my perceptions of reality? And so I looked for another avenue to approach Buddhism, and I found the Abbey. And the Abbey is just a fantastic place because it's full of just wonderful people who are caring and kind and are just the kind of people I wanted to meet. I used to think that Buddhism was just something very weird and that I was going to have to learn Chinese or something to be a Buddhist, and everything was going to be in a foreign language, and I wouldn't understand anything that was going on. But when I went to the Abbey, I've been there on 3 different retreats. I've spent three weekends there, and each time it was so enjoyable to me, and I got so much out of it. What attracted me also to Buddhism was the great respect for life they have, and the emphasis on virtuous conduct. While my faith in Jesus gave me a measure of spiritual peace, I discovered that my personal life was pretty much a disaster in terms of I was full of pain and suffering, and my personal life was not going well because I directed all my attention on grasping at things. I wanted to be happy. I wanted myself to be. So my goal in life was to find my personal happiness. And so I was after pleasures. I wanted to have lots of pleasure. I wanted to have lots of money. I wanted to have lots of friends. I wanted to have a good reputation. I wanted people to look up to me. But I found that I couldn't be happy that way because it wasn't happy because everything was ephemeral. Everything was always changing, and when I would find someone that made me happy, we would get into a friendship, and then that person would change and say, they'd say, "I'm sorry, I don't want to be your friend anymore," and I would feel lost, and so I thought of myself as the most important person in the world. And I thought everybody should do what they could to make me happy because that's what I wanted. But people didn't do that. And so that made me unhappy. And I was miserable. And when I went to the Abbey and I heard Venerable Chodron, who's the abbess there, gave lectures about why we are suffering and why we are unhappy and what causes that. And I felt she was talking about me, and I said to myself, how does this woman know me? How does she know what's in my heart? Because she was just reading my heart, just exactly how my life has been. And it was just incredible. I oftentimes was very, very nice to people, and people complimented me on that, but I always had a selfish motive for being nice. I wanted them to like me back. I wanted them to admire me. I was never nice just because being nice was the right thing to do. And I discovered that the pursuit of earthly things, like, happiness and good reputation, didn't really make me happy. And when I studied Buddhism, it taught me that all my actions that were based on self-interest always lead to suffering and pain. And I that's what Venerable Chodron was teaching. And that certainly was true in my case. And I learned that whether I'm happy or unhappy is not a result of what happens outside. It's not a result of how people treat me, but it was a result of my selfish motivations. That if I could change my motivations to be more altruistic and be concerned about doing what I could to make other people happy, then I felt better, and I found happiness that way. And the Dalai Lama has said that the essence of Buddhism is to practice compassion and develop a kind heart. And I thought that is so true. And so I found that to be the path to happiness, is acting for the benefit of other people, finding ways to make them happy, and that actually made me happy. And so it worked out really quite well. And I was listening to a lot of online lectures by venerable children, and we have a very small house, so whenever I was listening to a lecture, I had to tell my wife to keep the TV down because I was going to listen to a teaching, and she said, "Well, what are they teaching about?" And I said, "They're teaching me how to be compassionate." And she said to me, "Well, it's working." I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, since you've been doing this Buddhist thing," she says, "you've become a nicer person." And I said, "Really?" I was shocked. I didn't realize that other people would notice. And she noticed. And it really made me feel great. Anyway, this church, the United Methodist, we have 3 precepts that we live by. And you know those: do no harm, do good, and stay in love with God. And actually the Buddhism has precepts as well, very similar ones. And they have 5. The first one is no killing, the no killing of any living being, which I admire. And then no stealing, which means that you never take anything that's not freely offered. And then no lying and no false speech, and no slanderous speech or gossiping. And then not take intoxicants that cloud your mind, like either legal or illegal intoxicants. And the last is not engage in irresponsible sex. And they define that as not having sex outside a committed relationship. And those precepts are completely in line with the precepts of this church. And I was quite happy and admired Buddhism for those precepts. So Buddhism has helped me become a better Christian by reminding me that my focus of life should be to give up my selfish goals and attachments and relate to other people with love and compassion. And the main benefit of that has been my marriage. I've been married 54 years. And those of you that have been married a long time realize that you frequently take your spouse for granted, and you don't do the things that you would do with a new friend. Like you would go out of your way to make them happy or to be considerate for them, and you just go home and you treat your spouse as a roommate, basically, and our marriage did that. But my transition to being a woman put my marriage in jeopardy, because my wife is a strict Catholic, and she grew up as a Catholic, went to Catholic schools, always went to Catholic church. It was very devout Catholic. And here I am becoming a female, and her marriage basically ended because I was no longer a man, so she lost her husband, and here we had a marriage of 2 women, and she had a hard time accepting that. And it was difficult. It was really put a lot of stress on our marriage. And actually the Buddhist teachings have helped me work out that with her, because I no longer wanted my selfish desires to be satisfied. I wanted to make her happy. And so we talked it over, and we have worked out our differences, and our marriage is happier than it's ever been, because I studied Buddhism. Anyway, I want to just end by saying how very Christian I found Buddhism to be. And I want to read you one prayer that I read, and I looked at that prayer, and I thought, what a great Christian prayer that is. And it's a prayer for a prayer for a monastic mind. It's every Buddhist practitioner wants to have a monastic mind, and the prayer says that a monastic mind is one that is humble, imbued with a Buddhist worldview, dedicated to cultivating mindfulness, clear knowing, love, compassion, wisdom, and other good qualities. Being mindful of the kindness I have received from all sentient beings, I will relate to them with patience, kindness, and compassion. I will be mindful of my precepts and values, and will cultivate clear knowing of my thoughts and feelings, as well as how I speak and act. I will take care to act and speak at suitable times and in appropriate ways, abandoning idle talk and disruptive movements. With respect for others and confidence in my good qualities, I will be humble and easy for others to speak to. In all these activities, I will endeavor to remember impermanence, the emptiness of inherent existence, and to act for the benefit and welfare of others. And I read that and I thought, what a beautiful Christian prayer that is. I continue my studies of Buddhism, and I find that when Pastor Megan preaches, sometimes it's straight Buddhism. And I go up and tell her that. I said, Pastor Megan, you should be a Buddhist. And she says, the truth is universal for all religions. And I said, that's absolutely true. I've talked long enough. I want to introduce Venerable Monlam, who graciously has come from the Abbey. And Venerable Monlam is the newest nun that's been ordained at the Abbey. And she was ordained last year. And before she became a nun, she was working somewhere in the health professions. And at the Abbey, she does she does health care for the Abbey residents and guests, and she also works in the kitchen, and she's very good at that. So, Venerable Monlam, welcome, and I am honored that you are here, and thank you.
Thank you.
She's got it.
Is that close enough?
A little closer.
Hi. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all today, and Christine, you really did a beautiful job of summing up Buddhism. It sounded like from the service with Pastor Megan that there is so much in common, and from what you shared also with Christianity and Buddhism. I didn't grow up with religion. We went to, my family is, my father was Jewish and my mom was raised Christian, and she tried to be Jewish when we were younger, and we went to the synagogue until maybe I was 6, and that just, that relationship wasn't working out in our family, so we kind of celebrated Christian and Jewish holidays as I was growing up, but that was really the extent of my religious upbringing, and so I can speak about Buddhism and hear these similarities from like what you shared and what Pastor Megan was sharing this morning, but I really don't know much about Christianity besides what I've absorbed from our culture. And so that was a great way to start, especially with the monastic mind motivation. That's something that we recite each morning, all of our monastic community and our guests at the end of our meditation practice. And Buddhism is really working with our mind and our heart. In the Sanskrit language, and it could be the Tibetan language, somewhere mind and heart in the Buddhist context are the same word. And so when I use the word mind, or when I use the word heart, it's really talking about this same thing, this feeling, the way that we are experiencing the world. And so with Buddhism, we're working with our mind and our heart to develop virtuous qualities and to decrease and eventually eliminate our anger and our grasping at things, and also developing a realistic view, really seeing that things are constantly changing, that happiness isn't to be found outside of us, and that the way that we can see others can be misconstrued. Just like myself, others are always changing too, and so my judgments and my perceptions aren't necessarily accurate. And just a little bit about the Buddha's life is the Shakyamuni Buddha was born Siddhartha Gautama, and he lived about 2,500 years ago. And he was born as a prince and lived this royal life. And midway in his life, I think he was in his late teens, early 20s, he saw these 4 signs. He saw a person who was sick, he saw an old person, and he saw a dead person. And in ancient India, I don't think it was super uncommon for dead people, just to kind of be there. It wasn't like our culture where we really are hiding the dead and getting them out of our sight. And then he also saw the 4th sign of a mendicant, a religious practitioner who was looking for liberation from this dissatisfaction of aging, sickness, and death. So he escaped from his royal life and took up the life of a wandering mendicant. And through his work and through his practice, he was able to develop this compassion that really wants all of us, each and every being, to be free of our dissatisfaction and our suffering, and to have this lasting peace and happiness. And so he developed his good qualities to the maximum, limitlessly, and completely eliminated his anger and confusion and clinging to things. And in that, he gained some incredible powers, including this mind of omniscience, so where he could really know all things. And it's not godlike, it's not omnipotent, where he has power to kind of control things, but it was this omniscience of knowing all phenomena, of being able to know each and every being and different dispositions and different reasons for why we're experiencing what we experience. And so the Buddha really saw and taught that our own mind is the source of our happiness and pain. Just like you were talking, and like Pastor Megan was talking too, it's not the things, it's not the money, it's not the relationship, it's not our reputation, our car, our family, our stuff that brings us happiness. Although oftentimes we can be quite confused and think that it is, where if we can just get that thing, we can accomplish, this promotion or get this relationship, that's going to bring us happiness. And in the meantime, as we're pursuing these things, we can step on others and really prioritize ourselves, thinking that we're the most important and the center of the universe, and do a lot of harm as we are wanting to get the bigger and the best and more and better. And we've perhaps all had this experience of getting what we want, and then like the luster fades, the iPhone breaks, or we need a new one to keep up with folks and the new technology, or the job, as great as it sounds, like there's a lot of paperwork and the people I work with are kind of annoying. The relationship that's really wonderful at the beginning, challenges come up, and any lasting relationship is not going to be all satisfactory all the time. And so the Buddha really taught that when we can look inside our own mind and develop our own good qualities and this more realistic way of seeing things, that's the way to our own happiness and contentment. And I've seen this in my own experience where when challenging situations have come up, when I can connect with my aspirations. Like you were saying, the intentions of the church here is to do no harm and to be of benefit. When I can connect with that, when someone is doing something that I don't like or is unexpected or speaking harshly to me, that is going to help me stay more centered in how I respond. And I'm going to feel better about myself in that. I'm not going to, say something I regret. And this leads to more kind of contentment right now, and also will lead to a better relationship with this person or the situation more in the long run. I'm not burning my bridges as I'm going through the world. And the Buddha really acknowledged that we all want happiness and we don't want suffering. And I can see that is true for myself, that really I want to be happy. And I can see that others want that too. And oftentimes we're just really not super skilled in going about that. That we are kind of pulled around by wanting my own happiness more than the happiness of others, that my happiness is the most important. And the Buddha, with his great compassion, taught this concept called bodhicitta, which really drew me into Buddhism because I have been attracted to helping people throughout my life. That was maybe more, since I didn't have this, religious grounding, but where I did find a lot of grounding in my life is helping others, and so that's really what I had dedicated myself to. And the Buddha had taught about this bodhicitta aspiration, to really realize all of our good qualities and to cultivate our highest potentials so that we can help others do the same. And so seeing that others want happiness just like I do, and don't want to suffer just like I don't want to suffer, it gave me a lot of aspiration to really work on cultivating my own compassion and patience and being more kind and trying to be skillful so that I could then be an example for others of how to do that as well. As I started to work with Buddhism and these really specific instructions of transforming my mind and seeing things from this bigger perspective, I was able to see changes in my life. I used to work as a director of a nonprofit, and we taught youth radio broadcasting. And I had a lot of expectations of the students I was working with, and one of them was that they would be on time. And I would get pretty worked up when they weren't and feel, really stressed, like, all right, no, we don't have as much time to prepare for your show, and what's going to happen? It's going to be kind of rushed and half put together. And so when students would come and they would be late, I was more kind of judgmental, accusatory, like, why aren't you here? What's going on? Isn't this important? And learning the Buddha's teachings encouraged me to really evaluate my expectations and lower them, like drop them, like not be so attached to this outcome that I was wanting, but to let things unfold a bit more and to engage with whatever was in front of me in a way that I felt good about and was more in line with my values of kindness and compassion. And so as I did that, and then students were late, and I had more concern of like, oh, are you okay? Like, are things, is everything all right? Glad you're here. I'm here to help you however I can to get ready for your show. The whole experience went so much better for me and them. And I could see just bit by bit how working with my own mind and shifting my own view had a tremendous impact on the way that I could engage with others, and really learning that my thoughts and the way that I'm perceiving the world and those around me influenced my speech and influenced my actions. And so even as, things happen, when I have this irritation come up, I can think like, okay, well, at least I didn't say anything. I'm learning that actually the irritation still oozes out in many different ways. And so coming back to some of these instructions of remembering that everyone wants happiness and doesn't want to suffer, knowing that just like me, everyone is doing the best that they can, And also, just like me, we're all kind of confused. We're so habituated to going towards status and reputation and material objects as the sources of happiness that we just get confused about what really is going to create the causes for happiness. And so in our practice, we really continue to come back to look at what is the state of my mind, what are my emotions? Am I feeling like I have something and I'm afraid to let it go? In which case, I can maybe think about that I can be grateful for it right now, knowing that it's going to end and it won't last forever. I can think like actually how wonderful it might be to share it and the joy that comes from sharing with others, that it's enjoying something just totally myself isn't quite as rewarding as that. I can see that maybe it's not the object itself that that's making me happy. Maybe it is kind of my mind tricking me a little bit, because what is it in this object that's making me happy? Like I'm having this chocolate ice cream. Like, is it the sweetness? Is it the coldness? Is it the chocolate? And other people can have a totally different experience of chocolate ice cream. They might not even like ice cream. And so where is that happiness that's really in this object? And so thinking about how can I loosen this craving when I am getting in this kind of mindset. And also then to pay attention to my anger and irritation. And remember that others have been really kind to me. That perhaps I'm having an altercation or uncomfortable situation, or perhaps someone is making decisions that I disagree with, but that on a grander scale, this person has probably done many things that have contributed to my life and my well-being, and has done many kind things, and that this harmful thing that I'm perceiving right now is kind of minor when I look into this grand scheme of things. Something that, Christine, you highlighted a lot was the foundation of ethics in our practice. And that's been something for me that's been really transformational, to practice living in this way where I'm trying not to harm people and I'm acting with integrity even when no one's looking. And although I was a nice person before I met Buddhism, I like to help people, and I showed up and did the best that I could, but then really looking at these precepts that we keep of not killing, not stealing, not lying, speaking harshly, or being divisive towards others, not engaging in sexual misconduct, and not taking intoxicants, I could really see some areas for improvement. Especially with the speech. It's pretty easy to speak for me, and maybe for most of us, and things can come out of my mouth that aren't done with the wisest and kindest intention. And the more I really practiced with my ethics and tried to show up in a way that was in line with my intentions of being kind and helping others, the more I found this self-confidence growing and could navigate challenging situations, because I knew that I was doing my best and what I felt like was right and what was really going to be of the most benefit to all concerned, where I was expanding, just from my own self-serving, like what I think is right because this is what I want right now, to I am doing my best to serve the group and to serve others. And so as people would, question things, or, I'd get different feedback, I could tell that there was this growing confidence in increased ethics, and that I was able to be okay in my own skin and not necessarily need to look to others so much for that approval and validation, that I was feeling more okay with myself. And this is really key in Buddhism also, as we are trying to develop concentration and mindfulness, really staying, keeping our mind focused on a virtuous object. And this comes up as we are developing concentration. We practice this in meditation. As monastics at the Abbey, we meditate a couple times a day. And when we're living in line with our values as much as we can, and maintaining good ethics, then when we sit down to meditate, our mind isn't racing over so much about things that we don't feel good about. I mean, it still races when there are those things that I don't feel good about, and so that's how I can tell that it's not racing so much when I'm living with more kindness in my heart. And then this really gets reinforced as I then am able to concentrate a little bit more in meditation, that I'm more aware during my daily activities of what's going on in my mind and can connect more with, oh, okay, I'm feeling irritated. I need to, calm my mind a bit before I respond to this situation, because I know it's not going to go well if I'm kind of in this quick, feisty mood. In Buddhism, one of the kind of cornerstone ideas is karma. And this is something that I think is not so well understood outside of Buddhism. And it's quite a complex idea, but it really, I could see some relationships between the story that Pastor Megan was sharing today and these ideas of karma. It's kind of, karma is, translates as action, and really is like cause and effect. It's not something that is a reward of punishment, or, it's not a system of reward and punishment. It's not something that is controlled by an outside force, but it's that our actions have consequences, and our actions bring results. Something like you reap what you sow, or what goes around comes around, but it's not like you get what you deserve. That's not the idea of karma. It's more that the things that we do and the ways that we behave lead to results and lead to other situations. And karma and this action talks about how when we do things, like when we act, when we speak, and our thoughts, they plant what we refer to as like seeds on our mind stream, kind of these like mental imprints in our heart and mind. And these mental imprints then ripen in the future into the results. And there's a lot of relationship between them, and the specifics of karma are really impossible to know for us ordinary minds and our ordinary beings. A Buddha is a being who really knows the specifics of why things are happening, how is that directly related to our prior actions. But there are these general characteristics. And so the Buddha really saw that our virtuous actions lead to happiness, and our harmful actions lead to suffering. So the more that we are able to cultivate kindness and love in our heart, and really come from that perspective, from this aspiration to be of benefit to others, the more that we are planting those virtuous seeds in our mind, and that's what's going to ripen into this more lasting, authentic happiness, versus just going out and like getting what I want when I want at any cost, which is probably going to include doing some negative actions, and that's really, the negative karma that we'll create will result in suffering for ourselves and for others. Another aspect of karma is that small actions can have large results. And so just like a seed, we have, at the Abbey, we have some beautiful volunteer cherry tomatoes that have been growing in our garden. And so, like the tomato seeds, like they're these pretty teeny tiny things. And from this one seed now comes these cherry tomatoes that we get to pick each day. And the same with our actions, that one action can really bring a big result. And so that is with both negative actions and positive actions. So this really encourages me to refrain from negativity, because small negative actions can really blossom into a big result. And also to try and take advantage of opportunities I have to be kind and to step in and to be helpful and to be patient with others and really question my judgmental mind. Because I know that small acts of kindness can also blossom into wonderful giant fruits. With karma, another general characteristic is that if you don't create the cause, there won't be the result. And so if you are trying to grow tomatoes and you have like the fertile soil and you have water and sunshine, you can mix all those things together, but without that tomato seed, there will not be a tomato plant. And so we need to create the cause for the results that we want to experience. And so when we are wanting to have happiness and have others to have happiness, we need to work in our own mind and heart to cultivate that, to create the causes for that happiness. And if we don't create the causes, we won't have the result. And so that can also be a benefit as we are working to decrease our anger and our confusion, because when we can abstain from those things, then we're not creating the cause for that kind of suffering. And karma is not lost. When we plant these mental impressions in our mind, they don't get lost over time, but we can change them. There are ways to purify, and like Pastor Megan was talking about generating regret, we have some purification practices that really focus on generating authentic regret, acknowledging that we made a mistake, that we know the state of our mind was really confused and under the influence of these disturbing emotions, and that we'd like to do better next time. And we can engage in positive activities and make a determination to stop doing that action for a reasonable amount of time. Sometimes we can be okay, like we can be sure, like I will never do this again. And sometimes it's a pretty strong habit. It's like, okay, I can stop doing this for a day and then hopefully just continue in that direction. And so we can purify these seeds of negative karma that we've created. And then, unfortunately, we can also destroy our virtuous karma by getting angry and by having kind of distorted views, really clinging on to our ideas of others in this negative light. And so that's just a little bit about karma. And it sounds like there's some parallels, kind of similar themes between the story that was shared today and the impacts. Our actions have impacts. And so, as monastics, we really are working to develop our inner goodness and develop these good qualities. Like Christine said, the Abbey is a place that's full of kind people. And one thing that really attracted me to be there was that folks seemed like kind of typical. Like they were like me, like they were real people. I ordained, you said last year, but it was really about 3 months ago that I ordained. So I'm a little bitty baby nun. And I started to come to the Abbey. I started studying Buddhism almost 10 years ago, and started coming to the Abbey in 2015 when I had found a book by Venerable Chodron and really was enjoying it, and then found out that she had this monastery in Northeast Washington, and I'm from Colorado, and had some friends on the West Coast and was planning a trip, so I'm like, oh, it's kind of on the way back. And I came for a retreat, and yeah, this feeling of folks being there really wanting to serve others and help others, and also that they were not perfect. They weren't these like high enlightened beings, but they were just like me, working with their stuff and wanting to just continually grow. And so I kept coming back about once a year. I had this funny thought the first time I came to the Abbey that maybe I wanted to ordain. And so I kept exploring that over the years. And then I moved to the Abbey just over a year ago. And as monastics, we really get to be the conscience of society and show that it's possible to live our values, and that what's most important is our connections with others, the way that we show up in life. It's not so much the stuff that we have or our status, it's not so much the stuff, but it's the compassion that we have towards others and the way that we can navigate different changes. We have sometimes things change. You guys might notice, maybe you've had the experience of having a plan and then the plan changes. And so at the Abbey, we have a community of about 23 people. And we all, I think, go into the day with roughly a plan. And then sometimes something will happen, and that plan is out the window, and everyone's needing to kind of focus their energy in a different direction to work with this challenge or this obstacle that's come up, or some event or something's happened. And it's so amazing to work with a group of people who really acknowledge this impermanence, that things change, and that it's not so useful to cling on to the way I wanted it to be, and that this is my plan, and now you're changing my plan, and so I'm grumpy about that. But instead, how do I pivot to just show up and meet the situation in the best way that I can? And so we can be a model for others, too, of really cultivating this kind heart. And now in our culture, there is quite a bit of divisiveness where, everything seems to be, maybe everything is an overgeneralization, but so much seems to be political. And things are made into, they're politicized, and it's you believe in this or you believe in that, and our camps are very separate. And in Buddhism, as we're working to really see that others want happiness and don't want to suffer, that we're all really the same in this fundamental heart quality, that we try to connect with others on that level, that others are worthy of love and respect, just like I am worthy of love and respect. And others have the capacity to grow their love and compassion, just like I'm trying to do. And so we're really able to contribute to bringing together people and bringing ourselves back together as one human family, as opposed to these different camps that are engaging in a lot of negative talk towards each other. There's decisions made that some people really agree with, some people really disagree with, and it kind of just goes back and forth like that. And by seeing each other as lovable and worthy of compassion, it doesn't mean that we have to agree with each other's ideas, but it means that we can see that each person has the potential to really accomplish this happiness that they want, that they are perhaps confused on what the causes of happiness are, and that their actions don't define them. I can disagree with their actions and have reasons why, these actions are harmful, and I think that there's much better ways to do things, but that doesn't mean I need to lose respect for the person, because that person is doing their best with what they've got. And I can imagine if I was born in this situation and had the same influences as this person who's making decisions that I really disagree with, if I had all those same things, if I was bombarded with that conditioning, I might be just like them. I may have those same ideas, and my mind is not to this place where I am impervious to hatred and anger and clinging attachment, the same things that I see in myself, I see in others. And so as monastics, we're really working to live our values even in and especially in challenging situations, and bringing the Buddha's teachings into the 21st century because they're still very applicable. We still have a lot of dissatisfaction and suffering, and we still have the potential to fully develop our good qualities and really realize this lasting happiness and help others along the way to do the same. And so we do meditation practice each day where we work to cultivate these virtuous and realistic states of mind. And our meditation is really an opportunity to connect with the good qualities of the Buddha, and we can take the opportunity to really imagine what it would be like to have those same qualities and that kind and wise heart that reaches out impartially to others. And then we can apply some of these thought training techniques and the Buddha's teachings to go over situations in our life, to see where I'm finding I'm getting stuck, things that have happened where I've maybe been angry at someone or acted in ways that I regret, and thinking like, how would I like to do things differently? How would that work? And preparing my mind for perhaps encountering those similar situations again in my day-to-day. So in meditation, it's kind of like this rehearsal where I can think of how I'd like to act and I'd like to show up, and then life happens and I do my best, and then I go back to the cushion with that too, and just continue to look at how my mind is responding to situations and to people, and how I can continue to really see them all as kind and worthy of my respect. There's a couple different types of meditation. We do analytic meditation, where we're really thinking about the teachings and thinking about how they apply to our lives and doing this kind of dress rehearsal. And then there's also concentration meditation, where we're really placing our mind on one object, like our breath or the image of the Buddha, and working to keep our mind on that object and develop concentration in that way. And this helps us really penetrate deeper into the teachings, because I know with my own mind it's hard to focus on anything. I'd like to say for 5 minutes, but sometimes it's like 5 seconds. So in meditation, we just continue to come back to the object that we're focused on, and the mind gets distracted, we just continue to bring ourselves back and build up these mental qualities just through continuous practice and familiarization. And each day we set these daily motivations that really I could hear resonated in what you shared about the precepts of the church. We set the intention to do no harm, to help others, and to cultivate this bodhicitta aspiration to realize our highest potentials so that we can help others realize their highest potentials. And as monastics, we really include that. We try and engage in all of our daily activities, keeping those aspirations in mind, which is not easy. I come from, a very task-oriented background where it's kind of like, here's my checklist of the day, and I get these things done. And so it's really a joy to try and focus more on how I'm getting it done. That it's not about necessarily getting through the list, because I'm learning that the list is actually never done. Maybe I get through everything I had written down, but more things come. And so really shifting that focus to the way that I'm getting things done, and having that as the most important, of the way that I'm engaging with others, the way, like, what is going on in my mind? Is it virtuous? Am I being grateful for the opportunities I have, or am I ruminating about like, oh gosh, I have to do this thing again? And so when I notice that, to shift it when I need to shift it, and when I notice that it's in a more positive state, to celebrate and really nourish that. Because coming back to that idea of karma, what I'm familiarizing my mind with is what the seeds that I'm planting each and every moment is reflected in how I'm thinking and how I'm acting and how I'm speaking. And so, do we go till 10:30 or 11:30 or 11:45? 11:30? Okay, wonderful. So I'll wrap it up. So yeah, I invite you all if you're interested in learning more. There is pamphlets here, and we do have a monthly event. It's called Sharing the Dharma Day, and it's one Sunday a month. It starts at 10 up at the Abbey, and it's about 45 minutes away from here, so you could go, I don't know, the time might be conflicting. But anyways, you can reach out to us and really come up anytime if you'd like to come join us for lunch. And we have different programs, and there's online teachings if you'd like to learn more, and Christine is a really great resource. And maybe there's time for one very quick question, if you guys have any questions. Yeah.
What is reincarnation?
What is reincarnation? Oh, that's a great question. I will put it in a quick nutshell way, but there is much more to it. So, the Buddhist worldview, we are born over and over and over again. We've been born since beginningless time, and we'll keep getting born and reborn until we realize how things exist and that they don't exist the way we think they do. And so, just like there's a continuum of our physical body that gets born and dies, there's also this continuum of our mind that was there before we were born in this life, and then will continue on.
Oh, I went to the 150th anniversary of Chief Seff, which is Seattle's named after. And it was at St. Peter's Roman Catholic Church where he was baptized. And I noticed there was a whole big contingent of Buddhist monks at that event. And I thought it was very unusual, that, well, I just thought it was unusual. So I just thought, people would like to know that Chief Seff was baptized, and he was Roman Catholic, but there was a whole bunch of Buddhists, so he must have known Buddhist in his lifetime.
I hate
I don't
to
know if
cut everything
anybody
short,
looked.
but we've promised the scouts that they have this room.
Yeah, I know.
We threw them out
Right.
yesterday, and they're going to come back in again.
Thank you all
Perhaps-
for
Yeah,
coming.
maybe just in closing, that there is so much, there are a lot that our traditions have in common. Like perhaps you've heard here today, so maybe that was what was going on.
We want to thank you. If you have questions, perhaps right outside the sanctuary in the living room, you can take a few moments to chat.